Everybody, Brian Good here for Storm Talk. We have obviously a lot to get to, so let me get right into the details. Still dealing with the same setup that we've had to deal with since really last week, where we had that tropical low that caused all the problems into the panhandle of Florida, then set over Louisiana, dumping nearly 30 inches of rain for that area. That has now been absorbed completely into the boundary in the front, but everything's in a locked pattern. There's very little movement in this boundary. There is a low pressure across the upper Midwest that is scooting across Canada that is going to help pull this boundary to the east, the northern part of it anyway, which means right now the boundary is slanted southwest to northeast, and then as that low scoots by, it will begin to push the boundary a little more parallel to I-64, and then eventually fade it out. Now that process of the tilt, of it going from an angle to a more horizontal approach, still in question how quickly that is going to happen. And especially where it does become horizontal, is it going to be into southern Kentucky, or is it just going to pivot where it is now and line up along 64? If it is the latter, we will have to raise rain chances for tomorrow as well. And at the moment, we'll get 40%. I'll get into that in a second. First off, though, for this afternoon, we've got most of the rain bands in the belt itself just to our west. Sun's out. For those of you south and east of Louisville especially, you're like, hey, what rain? Nice day in that area. Nice weather for you guys for the next several hours. But for the rest of us, not so much, as clouds continue to increase, and then we'll get more and more of that activity of rain and thunderstorms to work their way to the east. Now, the Storm Prediction Center has a marginal risk in effect for all of wave country for this afternoon, mainly for the potential for some downburst winds that could take place. The reason for that has been some of the shear values, and I'll show you that in a second. Here's Futurecast. Let me get you the next few days. RPM showing that a slow progression as we into this afternoon of showers and thunderstorms working their way into this afternoon over central Kentucky, especially heavy rain. Some areas could say 1 to 2 inches. Some of you barely even a drop. Then for tonight, Futurecast still shows a good moisture flow. In fact, even tomorrow morning, it is showing that the front is still there. Notice that tilt. I think the RPM is on the right idea here. I mean, the tilt hasn't really shifted much in 12 hours. So I still think we're going to have a problem here for a while. Now, tomorrow afternoon, you start to see more of that east-west component of the front in the area, but I still think it's going to be slow go. So we're going to have to watch out rain chance for Wednesday. And then as we into Thursday, the front will still be on the map. So we'll still have some showers and thunderstorms to contend with. I think it's going to stall out in southern Kentucky. At that point, it's not so much where is it going to move from here on out, it's how quickly is it going to fade off the map. And that's another question we'll have to answer. So while we are showing a drying trend as the week wears on, I'm going to exercise some caution to that, as this system has been very difficult for the models to pick up on, because it is in a very sluggish pattern, and it is not exactly being driven by any one dramatic feature here. So the models are struggling because what it's doing is it's betting on one feature being more dominant than the other. So that changes the evolution of the speed, the timing, and the coverage of rain for our area. But if it's wrong, and it pinpointed too much on one particular factor, or it picked the wrong one, then the outcome is going to be completely different. Chaos theory, you gotta love that. But we are going to, at least as meteorologists, we're able to look at this and say, okay, we can tell already how this is evolving, and based on history as well in the past several days, how things are likely to evolve. And that's the reason why I want to make sure I'm clear that this is not set in stone on the chances and the coverage the next few days. Okay, for the rainfall. Obviously, the belt that's going to be over Indiana the longest, you guys likely had more impressive totals all the way through midnight. This is additional rainfall, but this activity is more of the thunderstorm variety over central Kentucky later on for the day today. As far as severe potential, there is a bit of shear. There's not a lot. I mean, 40, I've mentioned many times, usually the magic number that we look at, 40 knots, to see anything potentially significant when it comes to damaging winds. But as you can see here, there's very little in the way of 40 knot shear showing up here. And this is more of the effective layer, not exactly... basically, it's borderline, is what I'm trying to say. The shear area, too, is also lining up where the steady rain band is going to be. Now, this is only through about 2 o'clock today, so obviously some of that shear will begin to work its way a little more to the east as the front tries to tilt into Kentucky. But what's interesting is the capes are still forecast this afternoon to climb to about 1,000, which is decent instability. What I think is going to happen, where the two overlap, where the shear was and where the instability is, that is where we're going to have to watch for maybe some damaging winds in a few cases could develop today that could prompt a warning or two. So we'll have to keep that in mind. If you're south and east of that, I wouldn't rule it out, but I think you'll be more into the instability zone, so more your pulse type thunderstorm. So I think it's going to be Cincinnati through Louisville down to Bowling Green. That is the zone I think we need to watch, where that overlapping is of the instability and the weak shear for maybe a marginal severe thunderstorm. Now, as we head to the end of the week, I already discussed that. The weekend, has changed. No surprise there, considering what I just explained, how things are going here for us. Here is the GFS. This is your amount of moisture in the air. And where you get the brighter colors, that's where it's the more the blues and purples. That's a lot of moisture, very humid atmosphere. This was the GFS for Sunday night, what it procked. The front was moving through Saturday night to Sunday, all that deep moisture, showers, and thunderstorms especially being shoved to the south. Now here's the latest thinking from the GFS model for that exact same time period. Way slower and not as much of a dive into the area compared to the previous runs. More of a gentle easement of that dry air into the Ohio Valley. So that has changed the forecast for the weekend. We're going to go slow in the rain chances for the weekend. More scattered activity. There's good and bad in that. The good being a couple things. One, you're not looking at a concentrated periods of thunderstorms at any point really Saturday or Sunday. And two, the severe risk does get diminished somewhat. I'm not going to go into severe potential with the setup for the weekend because the models are doing horrible. There's no sense in even showing you the data because it's not locked on yet. So let's just throw that out for now. It's only Tuesday. The bad news is on this is that it is going to be a rain chance for the entire weekend and likely into Monday as well. At least, though, the GFS, Euro, Canadian, all still bring in that chance for some drier air and cooler air once it does clear the area. Now, considering the slower timing, I don't think Monday is going to be much of an enjoyment period for that. I think it's going to be more Tuesday. We get dew points in the 50s. That's nice compared to the dew points now we got in the 70s. So good drop in humidity value. Temperatures on Tuesday, I think in general, we're looking at upper 70s to around 80 degrees. I think Louisville has a chance probably hit 80, but still some nice refreshing air. But here's where you're really going to feel the change, and that would be Wednesday morning. 50s away from the city limits, about 60 or so here in the urban heat effect here in downtown. But it's 50s, upper 50s for Tuesday night and Wednesday, maybe even again Wednesday night into Thursday of next week. But unfortunately, it's next week. We got a lot to get through between now and then, as you just heard. I mentioned I was going to touch base on the Euro long range. I can't show the maps, but I will say that this is the CFS for mainly a good chunk of September. Very similar thoughts on this, especially the controlled run of the Euro, showing several waves of cold fronts. We do still have periods of warmth ahead of each one, but I still see frequent fronts moving in September, and that is likely going to lead to more rain chances, but at least temperatures either at or below average for September. I don't see any locked-in heat waves showing up yet, unlike the past few Septembers have shown. Interesting stuff there. We'll see how that plays out. That's it for now, guys. We'll see you today at 5 o'clock.